Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center and Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org. Edina Eye Physicians and Surgeons, a division of Twin Cities Eye Consultants, has proudly served the Twin Cities for more than 55 years now in 7 convenient locations. Using the most advanced technology combined with human touch, Edina Eye offers comprehensive services and dedicated specialists committed to excellence, with innovative procedures and expertise for the most advanced eye care.
Welcome to Access to Democracy. I'm Bill Raker, your guest host for this episode of the program. Thank you for joining us. Today we're welcoming guest Representative Liz Reyer, DFL for District 51B. Thank you for joining us today, Representative Reyer. She was here in February of this year and we're delighted to have her back. She holds a bachelor's degree in Chinese from the University of Minnesota, and she has her master's degree in political science from Ohio State University, and she lives in Eagan with her husband, Jim. Welcome, Liz. Delighted to have you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here today.
I understand you had quite a noteworthy career before you decided to enter the political arena and seek an elected office. Tell us a little bit about that background and how that might have encouraged, your experiences there might have encouraged you to get into politics.
Sure, that's an interesting topic to me. My career has not been what you might call linear. I have gone, but it's been very growth-oriented. I started my career as a researcher. I spent my time gathering information, helping companies and people understand the business challenges they faced, and looking for ways for them to improve. I worked at Blue Cross for 12 years, for example, working in areas as diverse as product development, customer satisfaction, working on the tobacco lawsuits, a lot of health-focused work, and then got interested in why the company didn't necessarily act on the recommendations that we made when they were enthusiastic about what we were saying the market wanted. With that in mind, I moved over into operations to understand what the constraints were and to understand why there may be barriers to action. That led me into a career in coaching because I found that rather than being the technical expert on that, I liked being at the table helping people with diverse perspectives understand each other and look at what they could be doing differently. That became the really unifying theme of my profession, is helping people come together, solve problems, and overcome their differences for the greater good, which to me then became a real description of what I think a legislator should do.
So it sounds like you had the opportunity to develop some skills and perspectives that would be really helpful, useful to you as an elected representative.
To me, I think so. I think the combination of the analytical, the ability to pull together ideas, to take multiple perspectives, and I literally, when I'm talking to people about it, picturing it physically moving around a table and sitting in different roles to get inside what people want, what success looks like for them, and how to overcome resistance in a constructive way.
Well, you're completing your first term as the representative from 51B, and you've been serving on several committees, like the Capital Investment Committee, and I want to come back and talk about that one a little bit more, and the Health and Finance Policy Committee, which we'll talk about as well, and preventing homelessness. Now, I'm curious about how does an elected representative get onto the committees that they serve on? Do you get to choose them, or are they kind of chosen for you?
It's somewhere in between. We're asked what our preferences would be, and we receive a chart with the schedule, the weekly schedule of committee meetings, so that we can say, my first priority is this committee, but if I take that one, I can't take these others.
I see.
And so you map out what you most want to do. So my top priority was the Health Committee, and that drove my ability to choose others. Capital investment was my second priority. Preventing homelessness was my third, and then I'm also on the Housing Committee. And so the Speaker and the Majority Leader with their staff work on this puzzle of everybody's preferences along with their backgrounds to get some a good mix of people. As they said, for example, we don't want only attorneys on the Judiciary Committee. You know, you want a diversity.
Well, thank you for giving that perspective on how that works. I think most of the people have no idea how committee selections are done because they don't have privy to what goes on in that process. But I want to ask two more questions about committees. One was, do you have any accomplishments within those committees, not the whole House, but within those committees that really stand out for you during this past term?
From a policy enacting legislation perspective or other perspective?
Well, no, let's stick with the policy perspective.
I do actually. In the Health Committee, I was a lead person on working on Medicaid dental and access to care for children. It's a big deal too. Only 37% of the kids who are on Medicaid on average are seen by a dentist in each year. 2/3 of the kids who have policy given access, you know, they're on Medicaid, they should be able to get care. Only 1/3 of them actually see a dentist, and that's because there are so few dentists who accept Medicaid, and that's because Minnesota's rates were, I think, 49th out of 50 in terms of being at the bottom. We got a 98% increase in Medicaid reimbursement rates that will take effect. But also, there are things that you need to do differently for this population. In some cases, there are cultural barriers to accessing care. There are a lot of new Americans, immigrant families, people who don't have experience or trust in the whole medical industry. And so designing services that meet people where they are and bring them in, having translators, having a safe environment. Being out in rural Minnesota where there are fewer dentists and making care available. So one of the other things we're doing is a pilot of dental homes model where people can innovate the types of service, they can get reimbursement for having different types of staff, give care, and get reimbursed for it, whereas right now they can't. So I'm really, really proud of the work I did on that, and I'm excited to take it further in the next session.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, because most people don't understand or recognize the needs that your committee was addressing in that policy work that you did. And you certainly made a huge difference in the future of the kids who are going to be able to benefit from that. So thank you for that.
So if I could tell you a little story about that. I was out visiting people in their neighborhoods this fall, you know, door knocking and introducing myself, not as a politician, but as their representative. I was going to every door on a street, and I was telling a man and his son, who's, you know, yay high, about that work and this whole Medicaid issue. And the son said, I'm part of that 37%. And I was just so happy and so pleased that their family was able to make it work, and that, you know, it touches people right here in Eagan. It's an important issue right here in Eagan.
Thank you for being there for that and for us.
Yeah.
Okay? So now my follow-on question was, you're going to seek a second term in the legislature. So let's fast forward, and you're re-elected to serve your second term. Will you seek to continue serving on these same committees that you've been on?
I think so. That's a big question, and there are a couple things. One is that the committee structure itself can change. I am going to, and I will also say, I am making the assumption that we will remain a DFL majority House, and but the needs of Minnesota could evolve such that the committees change a bit. There are some committees that I was very interested in being on that I didn't get a chance to serve on. Climate and energy would be at the top of that list. So I may consider that. Now in that area, I don't bring the technical knowledge I bring to the Health Committee, and I think that's been an advantage from my years at Blue Cross. I bring a lay person's interest and concern and dedication to making sure that we're taking climate change seriously and taking steps. So I'm still, we were just talking about that on the bus, on the bonding tour this past week, you know, sitting amongst ourselves and saying, well, what committees would you like to be on if you're back? So.
Well, thank you for explaining the dynamics that are at play when committee assignments get made, and you know, after an election and maybe shifts in majorities really impact how those committees are structured, I suppose. Let's talk a little bit about the Capital Investment Committee that you serve on.
Yeah.
Very important. And we know now that thanks to the action of Congress and the President that there will be significant infrastructure funding coming into Minnesota, other states as well. From your perspective, what are some of the priorities that those funds should be directed to? Where are the greatest needs for that?
I'm so excited about those funds because in the bonding tours, we have gone to so many communities that have water access issues. And it's metro, it's suburban, it's rural Minnesota, and every corner of the state where there would be a town, they have maybe 200-300 people, and their water mains, their water system, their ability to deliver safe, clean water, free of manganese or phosphorus at dangerous levels, it would take $4 or $5 million. If they had to fund that, it would take tens of thousands of dollars per resident, per household, and people simply can't afford that. And so they're coming to us as a state, and I understand that, and I multiply the couple of handsful of towns that we've gone to and seen that by all of the communities in the state that we haven't seen, and say, now here's where the infrastructure bill can really help, because it should be a mechanism by which these communities that are struggling to provide some of the basics just don't have the means. And Coates right here in Dakota County is one of the communities that's affected, and we had a testimony from the mayor about the loss of a child who developed cancer, went into remission, but it's resurfaced, and it's due to the water.
Oh, very, very sad, very sad.
Yeah, and so the federal program is available to help with that, as I understand it. We're waiting for guidance. It's a week old.
Sure.
So we don't really know. But I am hopeful that we'll be able to do that, and it'll free up bonding funds for other things that aren't necessarily covered. We have an incredible deficit of housing in Minnesota, from deeply affordable through workforce housing, even market rate, but that has its own financial mechanisms. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to divert some of the bonding funds that Minnesota has and use that on things that the federal infrastructure grant won't cover.
Will your committee have input and influence on how those funds are prioritized and where they're allocated once we actually get the funds and have them available?
I think so. Some of the funds are dedicated to go straight to counties and cities, and of course we won't. I haven't seen a breakdown on how they get allocated to the political subdivisions and how they get allocated directly to the state. So I don't really know the answer on that. For me, that's a bit of a stay tuned, but I think that we would at least, I hope, have a voice.
Well, we're looking forward to the good things that will come out of
Yeah.
the resources that will be made available in the areas where they're really needed. One of the other areas that I noticed that is of interest and priority to you is climate. And we've seen so many things in the headlines recently about the climate, and we know that there is a crisis there. What, from your perspective, would be one of the more important and beneficial things for us to do to help protect the climate?
I'm very interested in the intersection of jobs and climate. I think about how right now, for example, in northern Minnesota on the Iron Range, people need jobs to stay in their community. Likewise, if you go to northwestern Minnesota, you go to southwestern Minnesota, across the state, people need jobs to stay in their communities. And so looking at ways that we can be supporting climate-friendly industries in Minnesota, I think is really powerful, so that people do have that option. So examples I would give, there's a solar panel manufacturer up in northeastern Minnesota that we just funded an expansion of. There is a company that we visited this week on the bonding tour in North Minneapolis that is a program for developing solar, and they have a battery system there that they're piloting to be able to store the energy, because of course that's one of the challenges, and it'll be part of the grid, the emergency grid in North Minneapolis. So I think looking for opportunities to help communities be stronger because of jobs in ways that further climate action, I think is really important. I think it's a true opportunity, because it then also touches on building equity, building economic equity, giving access to jobs and training to communities that have typically been left out of some of the booms in our economy.
I'm getting a much better understanding and appreciation for all of the engagement and work that your position involves, even when you're not in official session.
Yeah.
It never stops, it seems, right?
I'm amused at the idea that it's a part-time job, and I don't know if it's because it's so engaging. It would be very hard to not be this involved. But the bonding tours were 14 days. We did 5 weeks of road trips. So I mean, there is a certain amount of just literal hours in the day that this committee required.
Well, we appreciate the time that you dedicate to getting the job done. I don't want to talk a whole lot about the COVID-19 pandemic, but it has changed a lot of things in a lot of people's lives. And I'm just curious if there have been some changes in the way the legislative process works here in Minnesota because of the limitations or the challenges of the COVID that you think might stay around after we've conquered this pandemic, which we will.
I think there's, the last session we were virtual, 100% virtual for committees, and then mostly virtual for floor sessions in the House. And one of the things that I noticed was that we were able to have people come in and testify from far-flung parts of the state. For example, I don't recall if it was housing or preventing homelessness, but we had a person who was a daycare provider from International Falls give their 5-minute testimony. In previous sessions, they would have had to drive down from International Falls, give their 5-minute testimony, and drive back, and it simply wouldn't have been realistic. So we're hearing voices that we haven't heard before, and I know I'm in my first term, but I'm hearing that from other legislators who have been around longer, and I would love to see us have that flexibility. Right now in the House, we don't have the technology for hybrid sessions where we would be in the committee room and people would be able to testify or even attend as members on Zoom. The Senate has that technology in their new building, so we'd have to figure that out. It's worked well in the chamber for people to not have to be in person, and we've worked out how to vote without being in person. So those things have all been good, and I hope we keep that flexibility. I mean, you probably heard during the pandemic when everyone was working from home, the improvement in air quality. You know,
and traffic got better.
Right, break the commuting culture,
Yeah.
and people found a lot of balance. And I think if you can go in more at your discretion, if your type of work permits, I think it's good on many levels.
I think some of that will stay around in a lot of areas of our lives. We've made new uses of technology because of the challenges that we have. Are there other kinds of technology that is coming into play that is having or will have an impact on the legislative process besides Zoom?
I don't know about on the legislative process when I think about that. I mean, we've got the ability to remote vote, which is good, with security, with biometric security. I want to emphasize that we know when our light goes green or red that it's us. I can't really think so much about other technology that could help the legislative process. Maybe we could invest, when we're doing bills, we still take our 2 copies of a bill and drop it in a basket called the hopper, and then they get carried around in paper envelopes and signed. You can sign online too, but I mean, there's still a very manual, paper-driven aspect of it. But people still also like being able to take notes on paper and use paper.
Sure,
so,
sure.
I mean,
What about these social media platforms that, they're taking over our lives? What about in the political world?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to be really careful and prudent, and not everyone is. I think it's a good way to get information out, but I worry and I'm careful not to have that be the only way, because I think that excludes people who are not inclined or don't have the technology or don't know how. I do think that we have to be careful too about exacerbating a digital divide that goes along economic and equity types of lines, and excludes people, including in rural Minnesota. And I'm going to bring it back around to the infrastructure bill with the money that the federal government is providing for broadband. And we've seen so many people, kids doing their homework in cars outside of McDonald's where they have a hotspot. And it's good that schools and libraries you can check out a laptop or an iPad or a hotspot. But what we need is for everyone to have good access to this, because people learn that way, people are getting health care that way, they're going to work that way. I think it's really important that we don't ease up on easing the digital divide.
Yeah, I think it's time that we all had equal opportunity for access to broadband. And hopefully this infrastructure funding will help achieve that.
I think it's like electricity in the north.
It sort of is, isn't
yeah.
it? I mean, it's pervasive in our lives, and we're tethered to those mobile devices like wherever we go. Before we wrap up, I want to ask one question about the staff, the support staff, the aides that work with you and all of the elected representatives. I know it's a big job for you to discharge your responsibilities, and you rely quite a bit on those people behind the scenes, behind the curtains. Tell us a little bit about how important those aides are, those staff members that you have to the work that you do.
One of the most common questions that I get is, what has surprised you the most as a legislator? And my answer is always, I had no idea about the staff, about the talent, about the level of accomplishment, and I'm talking about nonpartisan staff, research staff, finance staff, the revisor's office, and then, of course, our caucus staff. They are so accomplished and have such deep knowledge and are just a fun and interesting group to be with. I'm so impressed and so grateful, because you really can go to them with any question as a legislator and say, you know, here, in the case of a bill, here's what I would like it to accomplish. And they'll come back, they'll challenge. It's like, have you thought of this? If you do, this is not going to be legal, they'll say.
Well, that's good to know before you go too far with it.
That's right,
Yeah.
you can't do this. Oh, okay, but here's my goal, what can I do? And they'll brainstorm on what you can do to accomplish your goal. And it's just really a delight to work with the House staff. And I have to imagine the Senate's the same.
Is there anything more that you would like to share with our Access to Democracy viewers about you and your political perspective?
I just think we need to be looking out hard for each other. We didn't talk a lot about COVID. It's there. I think we are likely to see future surges. I read a little bit about past pandemics, and you know, they go in waves, and it takes a while for them to get under control. If people were vaxxing, if people were masking, if people were doing that more broadly, we would be not seeing as much as a surge as we're seeing right now, and it's really quite alarming to me. And it's, you know, so I ask the community to, you know, let's look out for each other and for future generations in access to voting, in a quality environment, in giving people access to affordable health care. And if we put on a view of the community supporting itself, and I can be a part of that as a legislator, I'll feel like I'm doing really good work.
Our guest on Access to Democracy has been Representative Liz Reyer. Thank you for your service to our community. Thank you for your service to our state. Thank you for being a guest on Access to Democracy.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.